And good morning, everybody. Hey, look I'm almost on time today. So I'm amazed with that. And I hope that it doesn't disturb you that I'm actually on time for once. But hey, we're going to talk about sleep apnea today. It was the thing that people wanted to talk about yesterday. So we're going to talk about sleep apnea now. I love this topic because it's one of the easier ones for me to talk about. There's uh, less of these weird mechanisms that I have to go through. So it's pretty simple. With sleep apnea, most often you're told to lose weight, that if you just lost weight, you would sleep much better. There's some truth to that, and we're going to go over that. But what if your excess weight is causing your sleep apnea, but the sleep disturbances are causing you to have the excess weight? Now, what do you do? How do you affect all of that when they're bidirectional, meaning they impact each other? Well, there's one other piece to this that's more simple that nobody probably has addressed with you and your sleep apnea and your excess weight and what's going on with all that. Now, there's no questioning that obesity causes some sleep apnea. We're going to go over how that happens and why. And we're going to go over how it's all linked into insulin resistance and how getting control of your insulin can actually help you with your sleep apnea and your weight at the same time. So we're going to dive in right about now. Most of us know that our world today is just so crazy and we're not getting the proper rest. It starts there. Do you guys know that sleep apnea oftentimes starts with these little disturbances in sleep that start to build and build and build? Now you're not getting enough energy. Now you're starting to put on weight. Now your cortisol levels rise. And when your cortisol levels rise, your insulin levels rise. And now you have this downward spiral that leads into sleep apnea. I know. I had sleep apnea. I had the sleep studies. I had the machine hooked up to me that made me feel and look like I was part of the Borg, if you know what that is. And then they told me that I woke up 60 times an hour. That blew my mind. I was expecting a couple of times. But basically, I was waking up just about every minute while I tried to sleep. No wonder I was waking up exhausted. I was prescribed a CPAP machine. The CPAP machine seemed to make things worse, and so I tried it for a while, and um, I could not sleep well. Okay, so this is going to crack me up. That's a whole other problem. Somebody said my nuts wake up 60 times an hour. That's a whole other issue, and you should probably get that checked out. All right, so let's go into how all of this is happening. Number one, we're just under so much stress lately in life. Yeah, there was stress when we were hunter gatherers, stress about where we're going to get our next meal, stress about, finding that meal and feeding the family and defending from other tribes and all of this stuff, right? So there was some stress. Not saying there wasn't, but it was very different and it just wasn't as inundated. Although there were times of stress, there were great times of just being able to relax and play and hang out and do just regular chores while conversing with people and then going to bed and getting restful sleep. We're not in that world anymore. We're in a world that's inundating us with information and negative information so much that we're just not getting enough rest. Plus, we're putting so much pressure on ourselves to be more, do more, be competitive with everyone else and not paying attention to what our own life needs, that we're costing ourselves sleep or wanting to be out partying and be out hanging out. Now, I've had nights, like especially lately, with my son, we don't often get to talk. So there are some blessed nights, especially generally in summertime, where we sit outside and talk and just about deep things, not gossipy things, but we talk about deep subjects. And sometimes those conversations can last until 2 a.m. We don't do that often. But for me, the trade-off of having that connection and that time with him is more important than that one night of sleep. However, when we replicate that over and over and over again, our body starts to shut down. And one of the things that happens is our cortisol levels rise when we're under stress. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So when cortisol levels rise, what we need to understand is cortisol's purpose is to get us up and moving, get energy to the body. And so when that's constantly elevated, it's constantly dumping sugar into your bloodstream because where is the energy going to come from for you to be up and on the ready? The cortisol is helping release that sugar. Now your insulin levels are going up. As your insulin levels go up, we start to see things like the sleep disturbances because I don't know if you've been with me much, but I've talked about many times how this whole insulin resistance piece, and we'll come back and go to that in a minute, can start to cause neural dysfunction. So, problems within the brain where the brain's not able to use serotonin and dopamine correctly, where your leptin and ghrelin are in imbalanced, and where your sex hormones and your thyroid hormones and all of that start to become imbalanced. But really, with insulin resistance, in the brain, when it's not getting enough energy, it starts to change those neural pathways. So, and it changes the ends of the pathways as well. So they're not getting enough energy, they're not functioning properly. So a pathway that's supposed to shoot a message to the other pathway no longer is getting that message through. And sometimes it's actually kind of coming out the side into this dead space, but the messages aren't coming through. So now you're not sleeping well. Now you have brain fog and you have anxiety and you have depression. And so it's getting these pathways to start functioning properly that's going to help with this piece of sleep apnea. Getting insulin under control so the brain is less insulin resistant and those pathways function more properly. Um, that can help. Now, narcolepsy, I haven't read. So somebody asked, is narcolepsy related to this as well? I have not done research on narcolepsy, but my little cogs in my head are saying, yeah, it does. But I can talk about that on another, or maybe even do a video. Let me I want to be able to respond to that question by a video after I've done some intelligible research to give you a real answer. Okay. I don't want to just give you a half assed answer, but I do believe that narcolepsy would be related to this as well for some of these actions, especially the nerve functionings or the neural pathway dysregulation in the brain. I definitely believe that that could have a part in this. So let me find the real research, and then we can answer it in a real answer. Okay. But you don't have diabetes, Tanya. Let's talk about that. Tanya says, I have all of these, but I don't have diabetes. We're going to talk about that in a second. Let's finish up with the sleep apnea part. Then I'm going to talk about why you have all of these and don't have diabetes, but are probably, if you have these, insulin resistant, and why you can be insulin resistant for about 20 years. For me, it was about 40 before it ever turned into diabetes. Okay. My diabetes is now reversed, but it started with insulin resistance, and we'll go over that. So now that's one pathway that sleep apnea is happening, right? We're stressed, our cortisol levels are rising, our insulin levels are rising. We're having this disruption in the brain, this insulin resistance in the brain that's disturbing our neural pathways and the way our thought processes and our brain works. That's going to obviously disrupt your sleep. Now, there's a couple of other things that have nothing to do with directly insulin, but indirectly insulin that we need to talk about with sleep apnea. You guys, I've talked about it so many times, and I am just as bad as everybody else. I have ADHD. I oftentimes go to bed at 9 o'clock thinking I'm going to get good sleep tonight, and then I'm scrolling, right? Dopamine hits for me. I'm scrolling and I'm learning and I'm doing the drama thing once in a while, and I'm like getting into funny videos and whatever. And all of a sudden it's 11, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm like, oh crap, I got to go to sleep. Is there any wonder that I suffer with energy and thoughts at sometimes because I'm not getting enough sleep? Shut off the electronics. Just shut off the electronics. We're going to talk about a couple of things that you can start to do to help your sleep apnea. Typical, common sense stuff that's not going to cost you anything. Number one is shut off the electronics. I've actually talked about, I have a TV in my bedroom, but I rarely ever watch it. Once in a while when I'm sick and I just don't want to get out of bed, which is very rarely, I will watch TV in there. So when we move, I'm probably moving that TV out of my bedroom, or maybe even do that sooner and just not have it there at all to help me get better sleep. And I would encourage you to do something similar. Your bedroom should be a room for sleep and rest, and your brain catches on to what your activities are in each room. So if you're setting up that you're supposed to be awake and watching TV, your brain's going to not shut down and rest when you're in your bedroom ready to sleep. Now, so we talked about light. We talked about, okay, a couple of other things is there's a lot of talk about how much sleep to get, and that's going to be very personal. Not everyone needs 8 hours of sleep. Some people thrive on 5 hours and their body works amazing on 5 hours. Some people that need only 5 hours and they're trying to get in eight, their body can actually start to shut down by trying to get too much sleep in. But we all have to find that sweet spot for us. And you'll know if you're waking up rested, if you're having energy throughout the day, you're probably getting better sleep. If you're waking up fatigued and brain fog and that you're not getting enough sleep, and so you need to address that. But again, we're talking about sleep apnea. So now you're like, well, how am I supposed to get sleep when I'm waking up 60 times an hour? So now let's take it one step further down the rabbit hole and understand that obstructive sleep apnea, where you have an obstruction in your airway, they used to say it was caused by obesity, and now they're understanding that it's independent of necessarily obesity, because even a lean person can have some obstructive sleep apnea. And we've talked about the difference between how people are heavy and how people are lean and still suffering with the same things, and this is no different. So this is what's happening with insulin resistance. Understands that your body, your brain is cueing your body to store this excess energy as fat. But with insulin resistance, instead of it pushing it out to the subcutaneous fat, the white jiggly stuff that's all over and not very pretty, but not extremely harmful to your body, a normal person will store the fat there. But a person with insulin resistance, they're going to start storing more fat in the abdominal area, the visceral fat. What I didn't understand for a long time, and I'm going to be honest, I just really learned this last year, because I had always thought visceral fat was like from the neck down to the groin, and that abdominal wall and the fat under there is full of mitochondria, and it's meant to keep your organs cushioned and warm and all of that. I knew all of that, right? What I didn't understand was that visceral fat also extends up into your throat and your tongue. So now with insulin resistance, whether you're lean or whether you're overweight, your body's putting on more fat in this visceral area, which includes the neck and the tongue. One of the things that's happening with sleep apnea is a condition called fat tongue. Fat tongue can happen irregardless of general obesity. So now we need to understand visceral fat. What's happening is your airways being obstructed and restricted because there's too much fat packing in around there. And then your throat, your tongue is really heavy and fat and fluffy. They actually offered me, excuse me, a solution to this thing called fat tongue, and that was they were going to cut a hole in my tongue and they were going to inject chemicals in it to dissolve the fat in my tongue. Are you serious? Do you want to inject chemicals in my tongue so that I can get better sleep, so that I can lose the weight, so I can, oh boy. Why don't we just address the fact why we have visceral fat in the tongue in the first place? That's insulin resistance telling your brain to put it there. So let's stop the insulin resistance, get the insulin levels down. That starts to thin out. Now look, I still have some excess weight on me, right? I have a number of other health issues that were born of 40 years of insulin resistance that I'm dealing with. One thing I'm not dealing with anymore, even though I have some excess weight on the rest of me, is my visceral fat is so much less than it was 3 years ago. So much so that fat in my throat and in my tongue has narrowed down, and I no longer have obstructive sleep apnea. I sleep well. On the nights when my brain's not running from ADHD, I go to sleep. I'm not waking up 60 times an hour. I'm not getting up several times a night to go to the restroom. I sleep. I fall asleep. And they're like, was it yesterday? Actually, today even, I fell asleep at like 10:30. My alarm went off at 6:30 and it startled me because I had been sleeping so hard, not getting up to use the restroom at 3 a.m., not waking up to roll and toss and turn and do all of that. I actually slept and rested. Now, those of you with sleep apnea, you're like, what does that feel like? How? I get it. I was there and now it's so much better. That visceral fat driven from insulin resistance is a huge problem with sleep apnea. And if we get that visceral fat down so that these things that are causing that obstruction in the first place can start to go away, now we have a real solution. Now, also, when you do that, you're starting to lose some weight and things are starting to get better and your cortisol levels are starting to come down and things start to normalize. But just like it was a building up, you have to allow this avalanche down. And it's not always an avalanche that's rolling quickly. It could be like the snow's just drifting slowly and you start to get better and better. But you have to give it time. It's not going to happen overnight. There's no magic pill that's going to remove all this visceral fat and reverse all of this overnight, oftentimes in a week or two. You have to stay consistent and understand how you got there so that you can understand how to overcome it. And that's really important with these. So, neural pathway disruptions, visceral fat in the head. Now you're starting to understand why you have some sleep apnea related to insulin resistance. Cortisol is huge in there. Remember, when cortisol levels go up, insulin levels go up. Now we have this battle for who's going to win between cortisol and insulin, and you're suffering with sleep apnea. A couple of other things that can cause sleep apnea, and I do want to address these because not everything is insulin resistance. One of the other things I experienced, and this has taken me years to get over, is I had a lot of childhood trauma. I had a lot, so much so that you would call it PTSD. And I didn't realize that's what it was for a long time. So not only was I halting sleep when I was sleeping, my body was always in this state of fight or flight. Cortisol levels were always high because of PTSD. I would halt sleeping when I was awake. I would be sitting with family and friends and they'd be like, Misha, breathe, breathe, just breathe, because I had stopped breathing. It's the body's way of like holding your breath for what's going to come next. That was a trigger, a pattern that was built in me from all of this trauma that I experienced in childhood. So understand that even that trauma from childhood starts to increase your insulin levels and decrease the brain function as far as being able to sleep and whatnot. Um, so if you've experienced that, then the best thing you can do is to just start understanding some sleep habits, work on those things, but also work on you and understand that hopefully you're not in that situation anymore and you don't need to stop breathing and being braced for the next hit all the time. So when you can start to switch your focus in life from all the negativity that happened to the positivity that's happening and find the positivity in your life, that part's going to change. Now, that had nothing to do with your diet, but I did want to address it because it's important. If you're halting sleep, maybe check to see, are you halting sleep during the daytime? Maybe it's some latent PTSD. Okay. So PTSD is not just for war veterans, anybody who's been through traumatic instances can have PTSD. All right. So sleep apnea. Now, and again, the more you're getting disrupted sleep, the more your cortisol levels are going up and your insulin levels are going up. Now, how all of this relates, and we're going to come back to, I have all of those, but I'm not diabetic. Let's talk about insulin resistance really quick so we can understand both sleep apnea and that comment of, I'm not diabetic, but I have all of these. Okay. So, and then I'll answer that question, how do you test for this, in just a second. With insulin resistance, predominantly the cause of insulin resistance is eating too much sugar. Now, there are other causes like traumas to the body, surgeries, injuries, PTSD, whatnot, that can cause your insulin levels to rise because your cortisol levels are rising. But overarching everything, the real problem is the food we eat is stripped of fiber and laden with glucose or sugar, carbohydrates. We're eating so much carbohydrates that our body is, inundated with all of this sugar, and that sugar in our blood system, or glucose, is telling our brain to tell our pancreas to produce insulin to help carry that sugar around through the body. Why is that important? Every single cell in the body, including your brain cells, every cell that they've looked at, they have not found a cell that does not have insulin receptors on it. So if we're insulin resistant, and the reason your cells have the insulin receptors is insulin is not really giving you energy, it's dictating the energy in your body. So it's delivering energy to the cells, and it says, hey, here, I've got energy for you. Let me open up, let me in. I want to deliver this package to you. So in an insulin resistant state, the body's starting to shut down to those clues to get energy in. This is happening in your brain. Now, thought patterns are off, your sleep patterns are off. Get the insulin levels down, and a lot of that starts to ease up for you. So getting that insulin down, and the cause of insulin resistance really is food. Now, it's not just that we're eating too much carbohydrate, which we all are, and we all are very aware that we are. So let's not have that discussion. But what we need to understand is the macros in our food so we can understand carbohydrates, because most people don't. They think about carbohydrates as breads, grains, starchy vegetables, but all vegetables and fruits are carbohydrates. I'm not saying they're all bad for you, but I'm just saying we've changed the way the chemical composure, the construction of our food, so much so that it's allowing too much glucose to hit the bloodstream too rapidly. That's causing this insulin spike. So even when you think you're eating healthy, you could have an insulin problem. And this has happened. I've seen it happen with many people who are pescatarian or vegetarian or thinking, I'm eating whole, clean foods. How could this happen to me? Because things like enzymes and fibers have been stripped out of our foods, modified, even good morning, even out of our raw organic foods, right? There's a reason a peach used to be, oof, there, I have it. A peach used to be about the size of this, and now a peach is the size of this. How did we go from this to this in the last 50 years? Well, glucose was glucose and fructose have been pumped up in that fruit. Fibers have been removed because fibers were making it smaller, denser, crunchier, a little bit more tart. And what we've said to the food industry is we like foods that are plump and juicy and sweet and delectable. So they complied and they changed our fruits and vegetables. Peach is the example, from about this size to this size. That's a lot of fiber that had to get stripped out to do this. Now what you're getting, instead of getting a small amount of glucose with a good amount of fiber to protect you, you're getting a lot of glucose and no fiber. So that glucose is going right into your bloodstream, causing a spike of insulin, and it's a problem. We need to understand that eating too often and too much of these foods is causing the problem, and that all we can really do in today's environment is to plug those gaps that have been created by the food industry and get us back to where we should be. It's been so bad that a number of scientists and nutritionists have said that our food is somewhat foreign to our bodies now because these things have been stripped out and we're going from here to here, that our bodies just don't know what to do with this anymore. And so we're struggling, and we end up with things like high cortisol levels and high insulin levels and the inability to burn fat and the overabundance of storing fat. So how do we get from insulin resistance to diabetes, and why is this probably affecting you even though you don't have diabetes? Well, when all of this is going on and you have too much sugar and insulin is struggling to get it out to the cells take it up at first, and then many cells start to shut down and say, nope, I'm not taking in any more insulin. I have enough energy. You've annoyed me. I'm done. I don't want to hear from you. The cells start to shut down, and there's a better explanation for that. They're being protective of what's going on inside the cell because now you have inflammation and a lot of other things happening. But the bottom line is these cells aren't taking up the insulin, which means they're not taking up the blood glucose. So now insulin's out there like, okay, well, I have this package to deliver, but I've got to put it somewhere. You're not going to take it. You're not going to take it. You're not going to take it. Okay, you'll have some, you won't take it, but I have excess. What am I going to do? It puts it in your storage unit called your fat cells. Now, there's a difference between how different people with different genetics put on fat. Some people, their fat cells are just expanding. And when those fat cells get expanded to a point where they can't take on anymore, or they're going to get destroyed, they start spilling that excess sugar back out into the bloodstream. Now your blood sugars are going. Now your A1C is going up. Now your triglycerides are going up. Now you're pre-diabetic and then diabetic because the body has no place else to put that sugar. You've turned off your cells, you've filled up your fat cells, and now you still have excess sugar. So now it's spilling out and you are having diabetes. Now, if you're active and you're doing and like I was a competitive athlete, so I worked out 6 days a week, 3 hours a day. I was active enough that even though I was insulin resistant, it hadn't spilled over into diabetes until I was forced to stop competing because I lost 2 hips and a knee, and my other knee was going bad. And before I had the knee replacement, I was told if I competed one more time, if I did one more squat, one more deadlift, and that leg twisted wrong, I would lose my entire leg. So I had to stop. When I stopped being so active, then it just like boom went right to diabetes. Now, did I just go diabetic overnight? No. Insulin resistance had been there for a long, long time, but through the mechanisms of doing keto for 10 years, of being so active, I was able to keep it at bay. But it was never really reversed or taken away because I didn't understand the pieces of what insulin resistance was and how it was affecting my health. That's why I'm here talking to you guys to help you understand this whole insulin resistance thing. So you can be insulin resistant for 20 years before it ever starts to turn into prediabetes and diabetes. Don't be fooled by the fact that diabetes is the cause of everything. Diabetes is downstream from actually developing insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is downstream of having too much glucose chronically in your system, creating too much insulin in your system. So we always dial back to the food we're eating. That's why that's why so many people talk about keto and reducing your carbohydrate load and whatnot. All of that happens long before you become diabetic. At some point, you're just overloaded and you become diabetic. And now that blood sugar is staying in your blood, making your blood sticky and destructive, causing heart problems, liver problems, kidney problems, eyesight problems, bleeding teeth and gums and all of that. Those symptoms can start to happen before you get the diagnosis of diabetes. So all of these are symptoms of insulin resistance. Now, just one of them, like liver disorders. Well, you could have a genetic thing going on. You could have had a bacterial infection. You could have had a number of other things go on that cause liver disorders. But when you combine liver disorders and vertigo and melasma and headaches that won't go away and depression and weight gain, now you have, oh gosh, I could be insulin resistance. So how do we take care of insulin resistance? What was the other question that you guys wanted answered up here? Let me check and see how do you test for this? That was the question. So if you're on my TikTok, there is a tab called how to tell. And I've given a couple of indications how to tell. You can do a number of things. A HOMA, HOMAIR, so homeostatic model of assessment for insulin resistance, is a test you can add to your annual labs for about $30. That's going to show you your insulin levels, but it doesn't stop there. Now you need to do a calculation between where your insulin levels are and where your blood sugars are. That calculation is in that tab. There's a whole video on it. It's a calculation that takes your blood sugars, multiplied by your HOMA-IR, and then divided by, I think it's 407. That's going to give you a score. And if you go watch that video, that's going to tell you. That's a more complicated but more complete model of assessment for whether you have insulin resistance. And if you have your pen and paper out, we're going to give you another one right now. So the other one is pretty common and pretty simple, and you should be able to do it with the labs you already have. So if you take a look at your last labs, you're going to find your triglyceride number. You're going to find your HDL, not your LDL. We want to look at your HDL. This calculation is also on the NIH's website, and it's in Dr. Bickman's book, Why We Get Sick. So this book, you guys, if you're interested in getting better, this is a book I would absolutely read and understand what's happening with your body. Totally recommend this. This is like my metabolic Bible right now. There's more information than this in here, obvious, but this gives you a good, like Ben is really good at talking about stuff in just a relatable way. So get the book if you're interested in that. I don't sell his book anything. I just think it's a great book. Okay. So this next test, triglycerides, HDL. You're going to take your triglycerides and you're going to divide them by your HDL. You should get a resulting number. If that resulting number is 1.5 or less, you're probably safe. Now, they've just recently changed that to a lot of scientists are starting to say, well, that, 1.5 is okay, but you're already starting to build insulin resistance. If we want to call you safe, we really want to see that number below 1 now. That's changed. So my video talks about 1.5, but regardless, try and see what your number looks like. If your number is 3, I've had people whose numbers were 5 and 7. Holy cats, that's a lot of insulin coursing through your veins. You have a problem, address it. Use that calculation. So triglycerides divided by HDL, under 1.5, you should be okay. Above, we need to address insulin resistance. That's a simple way to tell, okay? So there's a couple of other ways to tell that you're insulin resistant. And by the way, while we're here, I want to talk about the fact that since insulin resistance is lifestyle-related, diet, medications like metformin and Mounjaro and Ozempic, are they really the best thing to do? Because you're not deficient in those medications. Those medications are not fixing the nutritional deficiencies that caused you to be insulin resistant in the first place. So why are we doing so many of those drugs that are forcing numbers to look good, but not really addressing the root cause of why you got sick in the first place? I'm not a proponent of that model of disease. I'm a proponent of a model of health that's giving you back what you need so your body can do what it's always been meant to do. And interestingly enough, so of course, I'm going to talk about a system right now that I use to help me get rid of my sleep apnea, how I got rid of my sleep apnea, how I reversed my diabetes and my blood pressure. By the way, when you have sleep apnea, you're really putting a toll on your heart. And trust me, take it from me, do not ignore what's going on with your heart. Now, mine wasn't ignoring it. I had been to multiple doctors. So we had the sleep apnea, we had the weight gain, we had brain fog, we had anxiety, depression, and all of these things. But my blood pressure was out of control. And even my doctor was terrified, wondering, like, what day is Misha going to kick over? Because nobody can sustain a blood pressure this high for that long. It causes tremendous damage to your heart, and the long-term effects are going to be really negative for you, something you're going to have to struggle even harder with. Address your sleep, get your sleep apnea under control. Your heart's going to start to do better. Your whole health is going to do better. I did it by putting back what the food industry has stripped so my body could actually utilize the food that I eat in a way that's healthy for me. And that's the cue. Okay. So what I did was, and we're going to talk about how these are affecting sleep apnea or not. So I do a tea in the morning, which is what I've been drinking now. There's actually 2 teas in here. Today's probably a 3 tea day because I just feel like I need the energy. Got lots going on. I drink a tea in the morning. It gives me mental energy and clarity, shuts down my hunger, helps get proper cues to the brain. Okay. It's helping normal energy in the brain. So remember we talked about neural pathways? So in that way, very indirect and no specific scientific study that says that this is going to help that. But I think we're all adults and we can understand that if we're getting proper nutrition to the brain and slowing down those problems in the brain, now we have something that can work to help us start to reverse this. This also gives me antioxidant, anti-cancer properties. So Karen, you can order, I'll put the link right here for you guys. And those of you on TikTok, just go to my profile and look right under the red light symbols. There's a link where you can get the system. So that's just one part of it. So I have this tea twice a day. Gives me mental clarity and energy, shuts down my hunger, gives me all those antioxidant, anti-cancer properties, just really improves my health. Chlorogenic acids, I'll do another talk on chlorogenic acids and GLP-1 and all of that later. But this increases your GLP-1 by about 70%. It increases your wellness score. That feeling happy and satisfied with life and good about life, it increases that by 70%, according to some short studies that were done with a group of people who did this for just 30 days, one time a day. Now, the second part of it is, so I have a tea in the morning, and then when I start to have, that dip in energy and that exit, that afternoon snackiness, I'm hungry, I just have another one instead of a snack, instead of a Reese's cup or a Snickers bar or a bag of chips and a soda, I have this. That brings my energy level back up, shuts my hunger down, and allows me to be more metabolically healthy without adding in excess sugar that my body just doesn't need. Now, before I eat, what I do is I put this in, and we're going to talk about fiber a little bit today. So I do this fiber, I do it before every time I eat. So I actually have two tea and two fiber a day, because for me, with the health issues I've had, I want my gut taken care of. There's some interesting information about fiber and sleep apnea. And so let me pull that up because I don't have it memorized. And it's stuff that I just have been learning, but fiber does seem to be getting in enough fiber, and the right kinds of fiber seems to be linked to helping with sleep apnea. So I'm going to tell you how that's happening because it's really important. Now, in all of these studies, there were studies that said this combination, not this combination, but a combination of soluble and insoluble fibers, and getting in more of those actually started to help with sleep disturbances and sleep apnea. The studies also showed that psyllium husk alone, this one, does not do this. It takes that combination of soluble and insoluble fibers to make this happen. That's why I love this over this, because this is psyllium husk. This is 7 different types of soluble and insoluble fibers. Our scientists were paid because they know what they're doing with metabolism and metabolic health, and they actually went out and found the fibers that do the best for us, and they combined them all into this one packet that's giving us a spectrum, if you will, of fibers that are actually going to start to help you with proper metabolism and can affect. Now, the company, I'm going to say this, the company does not make this claim. I'm telling you that I found this in scientific research, that the combination of soluble and insoluble fibers in an increased amount positively affects your sleep apnea. So it indirectly affects by improving your gut health and your gut function, reducing gastrointestinal issues, so acidic stomach and just gastroparesis and peristalsis. It helps with all of this stuff. Big words to say everything that's going on in digesting your food. Fiber is helping that more naturally. So when it's helping that happen and you're getting nutrient absorption and you're getting less gut disturbances, especially at night, now you're sleeping better. There's less disturbances in your sleep at night. So there's another clue. Besides adding fiber in, what we want to do is make sure that 3 to 4 hours before we go to sleep, we're not packing our bodies full of food, especially hard to digest food. So stop the nighttime snacking. No popcorn at dinner, after dinner, or that piece of cheesecake, or that cookie or muffin, or that bowl of cereal or whatever. I used to eat cereal as a dessert. I don't have cereal in my home at all anymore now that I understand how destructive it is. But make sure you're stopping eating in time for your body to not be disturbed by the functions of digestion. Now, fiber's helping because it's getting that digestive process moving. Hopefully you've had your fiber and your food 4 hours before you sleep. Now your gut is not maybe hungry, but it's not working while you're trying to sleep. So you want your body, there's still processes going on in your body, but you don't want it overloaded when you're trying to rest. Just like you don't want to be watching TV when you're trying to rest. That gut doesn't need to be working, disturbing the rest of your body. So, but fiber, helping regulate your bowel movements and what's going on in your gut and reducing the inflammation and disturbances there. Fiber can really actually help with sleep apnea in that very indirect way, but it does help. And again, they're saying that psyllium husk does not do this. Psyllium husk does not help in that way. So just that one type of fiber isn't helping with this, according to science. So there's another part here. Soluble and insoluble fiber. Basically, the study said that when they studied people who are getting in the typical daily allotment of fiber that most of us get, that 10 to 16 grams, they tended to have more sleep disturbances, not enough action going on in the gut. When they increased those soluble and insoluble fibers and got a person above 30 grams, and the typical number seems to be about 37, sleep quality improved. So the mechanisms of all of that and just how all of this gut disturbance is going on really does affect your sleep. Now, understand you have a gut brain axis. Your gut and your brain communicate very directly. So if your gut is overworked and inflamed and tired, it's going to affect messages to the brain. We want those messages to be clean and clear so your brain can get the rest it needs as well. Sleep apnea, okay? But again, and I'm not the only person, there are scores of people who've had sleep apnea who just by doing this system, this protocol, and addressing their insulin resistance have seen their sleep apnea improve, and that's huge. So no medications, no CPAP machine, no looking like some person from outer space, and the craziness of like, man, I hated wearing a CPAP. I hated it. It sucked. I didn't want to, like, my personality, my neurodivergence, sometimes I would look at that CPAP machine and it was cause anxiety for me, which then is exacerbating. But I don't ever have to wear a CPAP. I don't have to do any of that. I sleep crazy good now. So it was just addressing my insulin resistance, the cortisol levels, and working continually on getting better sleep that helped with the sleep apnea. Now, the weight loss comes as you get those addressed. And it was interesting. There's a couple of studies I have here. Maybe I can show them. There were studies that are saying, because normally they say, well, lose weight and your sleep apnea would get better. As far as the visceral fat goes, I agree with that. However, there were a lot of studies done that said sleep apnea is independent of obesity, more linked to insulin resistance than it ever was with obesity itself. So understanding that obesity here, sleep apnea here, the one thing in the middle that connects them is insulin resistance. Now we can address this, and that recommendation of lose weight and you'll feel better, that's going to start to happen when you get insulin under control. Get better sleep and you can lose weight. That's going to happen when you get insulin under control and you start to get those cortisol levels and those sugar levels under control. I hope that made sense. Did that make sense to everyone? Do you have any questions? I love questions, you guys. When you guys have stopped and asked those, I really appreciate that. But I hope you understand a little bit more about sleep apnea, why insulin resistance is causing it, and how important it is to address your insulin resistance. So again, the way that I addressed insulin resistance is by just doing the system. Now, did I just go, hey, I'm sick, I'm going to jump on this and try this, and that's going to work, and now here I am? No. I went to multiple doctors. I went to sleep doctors. I went to endocrinologists. I went to general practitioners. We had scan after scan and blood work and urinalysis and all this stuff done, and no doctor was able to figure all of this out. I was frustrated and I was tired and I didn't want to be on medications. I was on 13 different medications 3 years ago, and I tried all kinds of natural stuff, putting together crazy shakes and doing all of these things. And I had spreadsheets of all of the stuff that I had to take and do in a day to try and get my health back. And the needle wasn't moving very quickly. And then I stumbled on this system and I was like, what the heck? I'm going to honestly, in my head, I'm going to die anyway if I don't do something. That was real in my head. So I tried the system, and against all odds, after I did everything else, I read the medical mediums books, and I was taking black seed oil and all the stuff and flax. And by the way, flax and chia seeds can be very inflammatory to some people. So they may work great for some people, they may not work great for other people. But this one system was the only thing that really positively moved the needle on my health, reversed my diabetes. My blood pressure this morning, I just did my blood pressure before I hopped on, and it was 115 over 74. 115 over 74. And I've been off of blood pressure medications for 3 years. Now, I was put on blood pressure medications in my late 20s. So around the age of 28 to 38 to 48 to almost 58. So 38, 48, 50. So almost 30 years of blood pressure medication, and my blood pressure did not get better. My sleep apnea was worse. I had leg cramps and I had muscle cramps throughout my body every time I tried to wake up. Yeah, my electrolytes were low, but there was a lot more going on than that. Um, all of these things happened, and I lost my gallbladder. So this one system, a tea in the morning, a tea in the afternoon when I need energy and satiety, and a fiber before my biggest meal of the day with carbohydrates in it, is all I had to do to reverse that needle. Well, not all I had to do, because I had to wake up, be an adult, and understand that this thing, because it's lifestyle related, is in my hands. My hands, your hands, not the doctor's hands, not somebody else's hands. It's up to you to understand what's going on in your health and take control of your life. We've given away too much control of everything in our life to everyone else, and to being like, oh, I'm struggling with this, but it's that person's fault, and it's that doctor's fault, and it's that, whatever. No, we have the choice. We get to make the choice. So now here's what I do. I wake up every day, I have my tea. I'm going to wait until about noon to have my lunch. And when I have lunch, it's going to be highly, almost all, and probably all today, proteins and fats. Then, so I have the tea in the morning. Then when I do eat, I'm going to have my fiber first, about 10 minutes before I eat, because this slows down a blood sugar spike by about 20% with one packet. And that's tested on high glucose foods like breads, pastas, rice. This was actually tested on white bread, one of the highest spiking foods in the world. So this 10 minutes before I eat helps reduce my blood sugar spike, helps get good positive prebiotics, the food that the probiotics in my gut eat, helping strengthen my gut. And that's it. I did that. Then fiber before I eat. I prioritize protein. You guys, 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight is about what you need. Okay. And then I don't fear fats. Now, I'm a very much aware of fats and what's happening now as opposed to before. So, we've all been sold the, use grapeseed oil, use canola oil, use whatever. Those are healthy oils. They're not. A lot of those oils, especially like safflower oil, sunflower oil, canola oil, corn oil, and whatnot, have high levels of linoleic acids. The linoleic acids actually increase your insulin levels, making you less insulin sensitive, more insulin resistant. So part of this is get rid of those bad fats. Now, what I'm going to tell you that I use, you're probably going to have heard as the bad fat, but it's not true. So I use olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, and there's a lot of research out there about olive oil, but you have to be careful because some places are taking a seed oil, putting enough olive oil in it to call it olive oil, and you're buying it thinking you're doing something healthier. So read your label, make sure that it's pure olive oil. Yes, it's going to cost you more, but you're going to use less, and you're not going to spend as much on medications and all the other stuff because you're inflamed and sick. Okay, so extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, and ghee. Now, predominantly, I use extra virgin olive oil and butter for my cooking. I have coconut oil throughout the house for a number of reasons. Coconut oil, there's one sitting here in my office. There's one sitting by my bed, and there's one in the kitchen because I use it for a number of things other than just dietary. Now, I've heard people say, I had my gallbladder removed, or I had this or that happen because I had a high cholesterol diet. It's not just the high cholesterol, it's the type of cholesterol that you're eating. Most of the cholesterol inside of our body does not come from the dietary cholesterol we eat. It's manufactured in our body and predominantly from sugar. So if it's gut microbiome, exercise, get gut, yeah, don't use vegetable oil, processed sugar, and more. It's a journey. It absolutely is a journey. So do I do better today than I did 3 years ago? Yes, I do, because now that I've seen the changes in my health, I understand how important this is, and if I wanna maintain my health at 60 years old, I wanna continue to do the right things. I wanna continue to improve on what I didn't know and what I was doing wrong in the beginning. So, I have uh a little gut problem right now. So I'm going to take some fiber because it helps soothe my gut. So look, I'm in a fasted state. Uh, why do I always do that? I will use this to help with this acidic feeling I'm having in my gut right now. It's not going to break my fast. It's going to help feed my gut microbiome. I don't have to take Tums and all of that. I use the fiber for more than just dietary. And that's as simple as my fiber is. I'm not carrying this around trying to measure. I pour this in some water, shake it up, drink it down, and you'll start to see this is thickening in the bottle already, and that is exactly what I want. So that was as simple as the fiber is. So Allison, do I have fatty liver plan at all written out to the T so that I don't have to think? I have so much brain fog, adult onset ADHD, that I basically have to be told what to do every step. I'm actually getting into this for my daughter, who's a teenager who has fatty liver disease and has been pre-diabetic, and it's hard to control what they eat. So I'm trying to get something that we can do together. That's simple. I usually need to see everything visually to absorb it. Help. Thank you. Allison, I don't have anything currently. The system is very, very simple, but I'm more than happy to coach you through that and to write some things out and help you with helping get your liver enzymes and your fatty liver under control. Understand that it's not necessarily the fats that you're eating, it's the sugars that you're eating that are causing this fatty liver disease, which we talked about yesterday. Remember? So you probably were on my call yesterday. I'd be happy to work on something like that. Thank you for requesting it. I'm more than happy to do that, and I'm more than happy to coach you through in the meantime. But to get started, you guys, because I was not perfect when I started. When I started this, it was in the middle of the pandemic. I was driving for Lyft and Uber because my mental and health state was so bad that I could no longer work in medical because I couldn't walk. I was in so much pain, I didn't even know if I'd be able to get into work most days. So it was a scary proposition, and I'm pretty tough. So I was dealing with a lot of pain, and I would be carrying trays, thousands of dollars worth of product on these trays for testing and whatnot. And my legs would just collapse from underneath me in the middle of a clinic day because my body had been through so much stress and so much pain that at some point it just shuts down and my legs would collapse. I'd have to catch myself on the walls. Many times I was just like, oh, thank God I had just set that tray down, but I couldn't do it anymore. So now I'm driving for Lyft and Uber in the middle of the pandemic. The bottom line is I did not have a perfect diet. When I was home, I tried to eat well, but in an 8 to 10 hour shift, oftentimes 10-hour shift out on the road, if you've not done that kind of job before, it's just sometimes it's back to back. I lived close to the center of a hub, and I would try to get home if there was a slowdown, but oftentimes I couldn't get home. Oftentimes there was like a moment in time where I'd have to shut the app off. Maybe I'm near McDonald's or Jack in the Box because that was the only thing that open. Most gas stations weren't even open in the inside, so I couldn't go in and get water. I had a small car. I couldn't carry a lot of stuff. My diet was not perfect. I ate what was available to me during those times, and I tried to do the best other times. Has it gotten much better for me? Yes. But the thing is, you start where you're at, and we work you into what this looks like for you and getting you to understand what works for you and how this is going to work in your life, because my life is different from yours, and what worked for me as far as how I ate and when I ate may be different than for you. The one thing that's constant for me is the need for the vitamins and minerals in this, and the energy I derive from this, the chlorogenic acids and the fiber. Like you saw, I've always had an acidic gut. I call it native gut. And there's reasons for that. So I'm Native American, and we tend to have very acidic guts, especially with the food environment we have now. This helps even with that acidic gut. I took it. Am I going to eat anytime soon? No, I'm not. But you know what the amazing thing is? The fiber, more and more studies are showing, like if I was to eat now, I could have a blood glucose spike level drop by about 20%. Now, in a few hours, if I eat again, even if I don't add this in, that blood glucose control is still effective in my body. And many studies have shown, so this was on a normal fiber like this, these studies, that it reduced the blood glucose spike by about 13% with the first meal. But a few hours later, 4 to 5 hours later, if that person ate again, mediated their carbohydrates, not having like sugar, waffles and potatoes, right? It reduced the blood sugar spike by about 60% a few hours later. So I like having this at any time of day that I need it for whatever reason. It's not just all about the blood glucose spike for me. Now you'll see how thick it is in there already. If you mixed this up like I just did that, and maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Maybe I'll mix up one of each so you can see the difference. Would you guys like me to do that? Because this won't do what this just did. Now, my stomach is already calming down. Those acids in my stomach have already, like I was getting the shivers up my back from the acids in my gut. So this helped that in just those few minutes. Now that's calmed down. Now I don't have that horrible feeling in my stomach. And now I also know I didn't break my fast. The probiotics in my gut are feeding on this prebiotic, which is creating short chain fatty acids. In a fasted state, those short chain fatty acids are telling my body to use fat for fuel. My ketones are going up. My ketones are going up, and those are actually the ones that are telling my body to use fat for fuel. So now, even though I didn't take this for eating, I am going to notice that I feel a little bit more satiated because it's going to thicken up in my gut. It's calmed down those acids. Now I also know that when I do eat, the compounded effect of this fiber is going to have a great effect on my blood sugar spike. So that's all I did. Sure, the link is broken. Let me check the link because it should be just fine. Let me put it in. Try that. That's a direct link to purchase, and the link tree is fine. Also, over on Facebook, I can put this in. WhatsApp is great if you're out of the country and you need to use that to communicate with me. Look, I talk to people from Europe, from Australia, from all over the world, and we just use WhatsApp, so we don't have all those costs. Even in Canada, I have a number of people who are just like, it costs me so much every time you text me. We just use WhatsApp. But if you're in the US, you can just use my number directly. Otherwise, use that number to find me on WhatsApp. Okay, so, and Allison, yeah, reach out to me and let's talk, and we'll do what we can to help you. I'm going to say, though, the system is what changed my life, helped me lose 50 pounds, helped me get all of this under control. And even though I am struggling with some latent heart problems from years of high blood pressure, I went from being angry to being thankful. Like, look, I was angry because not one doctor, not one nutritionist, not one person ever talked to me about insulin resistance or made it so plain and simple as to what was going on with my health. And partly because they didn't know. I'm angry because nobody caught it. All the years, all the tests, all the doctor's visits, all the stuff for all of these things, and nobody caught the one thing that could have changed my health, saved me from having hip replacements and a knee replacement, saved me from losing my gallbladder, saved me from the damage that's been done to my heart. But I'm thankful now because at least now I know. Now, the struggles that I've gone through, I can help other people hopefully never get there, or if they're where I was, help them start to get better with a simple system that's not causing more damage by the medications. And most medications are causing you more damage to try and get those numbers looking better. So the system works, and I have a gentleman who's lost 190 pounds after he was told to be doing like Monjaro, and he was like, nope, not doing it. He was told to do gastric bypass, and at first he was like, nope, not doing it. And then he was like, well, maybe I need to because nothing is working. He had a conversation with me. He started the system. He's lost 190 pounds and regained his health by just adding in these pieces that are what's been stripped out of our food and making us sick in the first place. It's that simple. Just putting back what's been stripped out so your body can do what it's meant to is all that it really takes. And then these few things that I talk about, like fiber first, prioritize protein, don't fear fats, limit your carbs. So your carbs shouldn't be coming from breads, rice, pasta. They should be coming from green leafy vegetables above ground, and some limited fruits and berries. Again, I talked about fruits yesterday. Don't overdo the fruits because that can actually lead to more problems. Is it safe to use when I'm on 2 blood pressure meds? Patty, I was on 2 blood pressure meds when I started. Out of the 13 medications I was on, 2 of them were for my blood pressure, and I came off of those. Now look, I'm going to say something. I am a little bit rogue with some things. I get frustrated, part of my personality. When I'm not getting answers and I feel like people have failed me, I get frustrated and I do what I do what I want. But that's my life. That's my health. I'm not advocating for that for anyone else. But I personally came off of my blood pressure medications within a month of starting this because I was just like, I walked up to my counter and I'm like, why am I taking all of these medications? I don't like medications. And I don't want to do this to my body anymore. You guys, I literally took my garbage can, pulled it up to my counter, and swiped all of my medications into that garbage can and was done with them and never refilled another medication. Now, that's a little bit of an untruth. I tried some thyroid medication for a while and I did some hormone replacement, but the last hormone panel that I did, not taking any of those, just addressing my insulin resistance, my thyroid levels were all in normal range. My hormone levels were all in normal range. My body's doing its job now. Okay, so I'm not taking hormones. I'm not taking thyroid. I'm not taking uh, blood pressure medications. I'm not taking statins. I'm not taking pain medications. I don't have any prescribed medications in my home. The only medication that's in my home is some Tylenol or NSAID. And I use that very sparingly because I've done damage to my liver from all of these medications and insulin resistance. So those are like a rescue me thing, but they're sitting there and they don't really get used. That's the only medication that's in my house. Everything else is all about nutrition and getting my body what it needs nutritionally. And this system happens to fill the gap of most of those, high in vitamins and minerals, high in fibers, high in chlorogenic acids and theobromine, and a bunch of other things that are big words to say it's healthy for you. The link isn't working for you. Let's see if it allows this to go in. Sometimes it will and sometimes it won't. Okay, I just typed in a link directly to purchase. Can you guys see that link? I can see it, but sometimes it doesn't allow you to see it. Can somebody on TikTok tell me if the link that I just put in shows up? And if you need to talk to me, let's try and do this and see if I don't get banned for this because TikTok is kind of particular. So that's what you want to dial to get a hold of me and have a conversation or have me send you the links if they're not working. If the links aren't working, it could be that you need to clear your browsing history or your cache. Every time I've checked the links, they're working fine. Usually it's somebody and I've had that happen. But just check that or message me privately here on TikTok. If you didn't see those links show up or that number, message me privately and I will get the link to you. In fact, let me um, Screenshot that and I will message you here on TikTok the link. But if you guys are having problems with it, let me know. All right, so that's sleep apnea and insulin resistance. You guys, the biggest thing I want you to understand is that insulin resistance, 93% of us worldwide are suffering with some type of metabolic disorder. And that means insulin resistance. If we can take care of the insulin resistance, there's a likelihood, TikTok, there's a likelihood that all of these things can start to get better. But that's up to you and the changes that you're willing to make in your life. The system is the beginning and it's going to help give you that leg up. Now, it's a system that I will never be without for the rest of my life. My kids know that. This little system, this little thing is my life. If I want to have a healthy life, if I want to be around for my grandkids, if I want to be able to walk up and down stairs, get up and down off the floor, which are things I couldn't do 3 years ago, I'm going to continue to do this. When people ask me, how long do I have to do it? I want to say this. How long are you going to eat every day? How long are you going to put food in your mouth? Because the food you're putting in your mouth is imperfect and it's stripped of some of these things that you need. So this to me is not a supplement, it's a food. It's my nutrition for the day. It's giving me the health that I need. And why would I ever stop? What saved me from diabetes and hypertension and probably having my heart blow out and not having another joint replacement surgery and stopping the bleeding teeth and gums and reversing some of the eyesight damage and having my hair grow back in. I was balding under here. This spot of my hair was all balding and my hairline was receding from insulin resistance. That's all growing back in. My skin looks better. Why would I stop something that does so much good for me? Okay. All right, guys, it's that time. I'm going to head out. I'm going to get some of these things done. I will try to message those of you who have asked. I'm not quite sure. Every time I've had the links checked by other people, they work. So if I just need to send it directly to you, we'll try that and just let me know. Message me here and I will answer. Let's get you healthy and let's get you healthy in a healthy way. Their products are gluten-free, they're halal, so no animal products if you're vegetarian. Um, no gluten if you have a gluten allergy, nothing like grapefruit that's going to interact with any medications. Oh, and I haven't talked about this for a while. It's in the PDR, the prescriber's digital reference. It's not a medication, but there's so much science and efficacy behind this that it's allowed to be in the PDR. It's some of the only real food products that are in the prescriber's digital reference. You can actually look it up and find it there. You can find any of your medications in there. We're there. We're one of the only companies who has products in that reference. We have 18 different products in there. We take your health seriously. And good morning, Ro. And that's really important. You want to work with somebody that they really do the work to make sure that what they're giving you actually works. And this company's done that. So I look forward to being your coach and helping you through your health journey, especially things like sleep apnea. And I look forward to hearing your story of how you're doing so much better. In the meantime, reach out to me, use the links, and we will have a chat and get you started so that you can be the next success story. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning. I won't be live on Friday. One of the things I want to talk about before I head out, because I always have something else to say. I always have something else to say. I do this as a business now. This is what I do for work. Instead of going into an office and taking vitals and giving people medications and giving people injections and all of that stuff, I do this now because this is a much healthier model. And it's a much healthier model for me. And it's much more productive for me and the people who are on my team as well. Now, I went from working 8 to 10 hours a day every single day just to try and pay my bills to being able to do this. So I won't be live on Friday because my beautiful grandson has a field day Friday. He has a disability and it's really important when his grandma is there for him for these things. So I'm taking the morning off and I'm going to go spend it with this amazing little boy and just pour into him on Friday. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, and then I won't be here Friday. I'll be back on Monday. You guys, I want that for everyone. Not only do I want you to have health that gives you the ability to have the life you love, I want you to have the ability to live the life you love. So please understand that. You guys, I think in this world today, we have we have disconnected ourselves so much from the people that we love that it's hurting us. And on another note, I'm going to say this: when we don't have gratitude, when we don't have those things that are filling our heart, we tend to be sicker anyway. This is a little bit off topic, but if you really want to take care of your health, take care of the rest of your life as well. Be present for your family, be present for your friends. Allow yourself to feel joy in your life in the little moments and let those people know how important they are to you. Your life will change. I promise you it will. So I will I will send you the link privately. If you can't get to it here through my profile, let's I'll just get you the link privately. Okay, but if you go to my profile, tap on it, look right under the red light symbols, you'll see a link, and that's where you're going to find all my information. Okay, and if that's not working, I'm going to just send it to you anyway. All right, you guys, thank you again for joining me, for listening, for hanging out, for learning, for diving into your own health and taking control. It's really important to me that we all start to be a little more autonomous and understand that we have control of our life, our thoughts, what we put in our bodies, how we have moved through the world, and that's what's really going to build your health. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Not sure what I'm going to talk about. How about I'll figure it out? I'll figure it out by morning. Unless somebody messages me and says there's something that they want me to address tomorrow, I'll just figure it out. I know somebody wants PCOS, so we'll do PCOS again next week. All right, you guys have a good morning. Have a blessed day, by the way.